Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story about standing up for yourself, dealing with difficult people, and finding humor in unexpected situations. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. I'm not supposed to work when I'm not clocked in. So my work happens to be my regular grocery store. I like shopping there on grocery day because I get a ton of freebies and discounts. On this particular Saturday, I decided to do my weekly shopping before starting a new week of being verbally abused for $13 an hour. I should make it clear here, I was not in my work clothes. My normal attire for work is cargo pants and my work shirt. This particular day, I decided to wear a Hawaiian shirt and shorts. I don't know why. As I set my orange juice in my cart, I can feel someone staring at me. It's the kind of intense stare that you only feel after they've been checking you out for a good few minutes or so. I turn around and see this customer that I recognize immediately. She comes by nearly every day for random little household goods or weird little overpriced succulents. She's got some poorly behaved little kids too, but they weren't there with her. I turned back around, figuring she didn't have anything to say to me. She didn't ask me a question, didn't tell me I dropped something, nothing. I go back to shopping and start debating which almond milk is less crappy when I feel her staring at me again. This time, I make it a point to turn back around and make eye contact with her. It's about time you noticed me. I don't know what happened to the employees here. Everyone used to be so nice. Now you people barely even acknowledge a loyal customer. She proceeds to walk up to me and cross her arms, like she's my mom or something. Look, I'm a young guy. I started working here as a teenager, so I'm used to being talked down to. This lady just bothered me a lot. Miss, I helped you out a few days ago. If there's a question you have, I can answer quickly, but I'm on my day off. I'm not supposed to work when I'm not clocked in. She looks at me like I just spoke a foreign language and huffs, "You shouldn't be here on your day off then. Besides, I'm still a customer and I come in when you're working." At this point, I'm beginning to get irritated. Normally, I wave them off, but because I'm not in my work clothes, I have the freedom to be a little bitchier. I understand that you see me during your shifts, but this isn't one of them. You're trying to make me work on a day that I have off, and I don't get many of them. Technically, I shouldn't even help you out like I originally offered. Thank you for reminding me. I then shove the almond milk back on the cooler rack and walk away. She left a complaint with the manager immediately. They called me up to the front, thinking I was on a shift. When I explained what happened, my manager just laughed at the lady. She's always been a bit of a problem customer, so we never really bother her with complaints. She even threatened to call corporate, so my manager wrote the number down and dared her to call them. She said something along the lines of, "Go for it. While you're at it, tell them what you told my employee. They'll love to know that you tried to harass him," or something like that. She still shops there, but she actively avoids me when I'm a cashier or bagging. Do they really think grocery store workers don't or shouldn't buy their own groceries when they're off shift? What is the logic there? Everybody's got to eat. And our second story. You want to slightly insult me? I'll slightly ruin your flight. About a year ago, I was on a short domestic flight, around 3 to 4 hours. I was seated towards the front of the flight and lined up to board when they called for my group. I saw I had a window seat, and as I saw where I was sitting, I noticed an older woman in the aisle seat of my row, and who I learned to be her daughter, maybe late 40s, in the middle seat. I let them know I was sitting next to the window and apologized for making them get up so I could sit down. The older lady didn't seem to understand what I was saying at first, and she just kept smiling at me until her daughter told her to get up because they have to let me get past them. The older woman got up and told me not to worry about it, but her daughter seemed extremely annoyed when she told her to move for me. I didn't mind at all and apologized once more for being too big to fit past them without having to get up, and once again the older lady gave me a big smile and told me not to worry about it. Unfortunately, the daughter was nowhere near as happy as her mother. This is the point where the daughter started to fire off comments to her mother that were directed at me, pissed off at the fact that since I have a window seat, I should have been on the plane before them so they didn't have such a hassle to get back up after they were already seated, etc. Her mother, though, didn't seem to pay her any mind. I just ignored her tirade. I did feel guilty that I made them, especially the older lady with the big smile, get up for me. But when the daughter saw her mother was ignoring her, she started to look for anyone around us that she could complain about me to. She even asked the flight attendant for a glass of wine because this silly moron next to her had stressed her out. I put my headphones in and occasionally would pause the movie I was watching on my phone to check if she was still complaining about me. Now, I usually have to put up with comments and slight insults for work. I've been called a lot worse before, and honestly, being called a silly moron is more humorous than anything. So I was just going to let it slide. That's when I noticed, as we reached flying altitude, that she was trying to see out the window to look down on the city we were leaving. Immediately, I hunched myself forward to block her from seeing out the window and kept watching my movie. Initially, I planned to block the window for about 20 minutes, but 20 became 30, 30 became 45, and I thought, what the hell? I'm going to fully commit to hunching in front of the window for the entire flight. I saw her getting annoyed, but I blasted my volume, held in my pee, skipped the mid-flight snack and drinks, and continued to block the window until we landed. It was definitely worth it. Starting issues with people you'll be stuck on a metal tube in the sky with for several hours is ridiculous, especially when you've done nothing wrong and we're polite. Unfortunately, there are lots of Karens out there. Stay safe, dude. And our next story. Here's your extra hot chai. This story is from about 10 years ago when I worked at Green Apron Coffee. The store where I worked was a drive-thru store, so this day I was working the drive-thru bar making drinks. Anyone who's working on the drive-thru side will wear a headset even if we aren't greeting the customers. A minivan pulled up to the box, and before we even got to greet her, I need an extra hot chai latte. Anytime I order it extra hot, you never make it hot enough. And that's all. And she pulled away from the box immediately. I distinctly remember her saying extra 7 times. Pro tip, the standard when I worked there was that extra hot means 155 degrees. The standard temperature is 140 degrees. Although a chai latte also has water added, which is 200 degrees, so that's already slightly hotter than standard when you order it without any modifications. If you want to drink hotter, just say the temperature, but keep in mind that milk burns at around 190 degrees when it's being steamed. The McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit was over a 200-degree cup of coffee, which caused severe burns to the woman's inner thighs and genitals. Be very careful when handling drinks in this temperature range. Since I got to make her drink, I didn't have to deal with her directly, but me being the vengeful young adult I was at the time and wanting to teach her a lesson about being polite to those in food service, I steamed her milk to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. How hot is 7 extras exactly? Adding that much steam to milk makes it quite watery with some coagulated proteins on top. The steamer also gets quite loud, allowing it to run at that hot of a temperature. I scooped off the burned portion of her milk, assembled her cup with the chai concentrate, then hot water, and then poured the milk to the top of her cup. I warned my coworker which cup was the hot one. When the customer pulled up to the window, I watched silently in glee as she pulled the stopper out of her cup and immediately tried to chug her 7X extra hot drink. Her eyes widened as she realized how hot it was, and then she spat out the remainder that was in her mouth. She put the stopper back in her drink, and still with chai on her face, turned to us and said, "Thank you so much," then drove off. I can remember almost in slow motion how her face went from surprise to annoyance to acceptance to satisfaction. I could tell she wanted to complain, but she also got exactly what she ordered. Edit. I should clarify I made her drink at that temperature knowing full well I was violating corporate policy. And I'd seen that hot coffee documentary, so I knew that temperature was dangerous. If I'd done that and the customer complained, I would have gotten written up. But what would she have said? "Excuse me, this drink that I berated your employees to make extra hot was actually extra hot this time?" I never understood why people ordered their drinks extra hot. The milk's burned and tastes awful, your mouth gets burned, your taste buds singe, and every time you move your tongue, it feels like sandpaper rubbing around in there. And our next story. Uproot the hedge? Let's just double check. My grandmother lives in a city neighborhood where the houses are fairly close to each other. She's always had a problem with her sour neighbor complaining about one thing or another. So one day her neighbor notifies her that she believes that the hedge running down the property line separating the two driveways is on her land, and she wants my grandmother to cut it down. Seems a little stupid, as the hedge provides a small amount of privacy between the two homes and benefits both parties. So my grandmother has no choice but to comply with her wish, but first she hires a surveyor to come and determine exactly where the property line is. Turns out that the hedge is indeed on my grandmother's property. It also reveals that the neighbor's garage is 2 feet over the property line onto my grandmother's property. The look on her neighbor's face when she gets the report and is informed that she has to tear down her garage was worth the price of the survey. They eventually settled, and in the interest of peace, my grandmother allowed her to buy the land on her property for several $1,000s. Glad she was able to enjoy that look of fear/rage for a bit before she did a very reasonable and neighborly thing. I like the stories where you get total victory and can still take the high road. And our last story. Got towed by a predatory tow company. So a few days ago, I let my friend borrow my second vehicle. He drove it around for a while and then texted me at 3 a.m. saying it broke down. He got it safely off to the side of the road, very near his other friend's house. When I awoke and saw his messages, I was a bit upset, but it wasn't that big of a deal. We worked together, and that night at work, he assured me it was safe and off the road. The alternator was bad and I'll need it towed, can't just jump it. He gave me the key back, and the next morning at 6 a.m., I went out and left the key with the car and called some tow truck companies. It took a few days, too, but I got in touch with my mechanic and got an appointment scheduled, as well as a tow truck driver to go pick it up and bring it to my mechanic. When my tow truck driver arrived, he called me and said he couldn't locate my car. He drove up and down the road multiple times and concluded it was gone. His only suggestion was to call other local tow companies and inquire if they took it. I called my mechanic immediately to cancel my appointment and tell him the situation, and he kind of flipped out. Not on me, he said that there are multiple predatory tow businesses in town, and I should call the cops and report it stolen, because they like to take cars off of private property and then hold it for weeks, charging $200 a day to release it. Update. Feeling pretty stressed, I followed his advice and called the police to report my car stolen. A few days later, the police contacted me with good news. They'd located my car at one of the predatory tow lots. After some back and forth, the company agreed to release my car without exorbitant fees. I was relieved to finally get my car back and grateful for my mechanic's advice. Sometimes standing up for yourself means dealing with some shady characters. But in the end, persistence and knowing your rights can pay off. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.